Hello and welcome to the Palsy Podcast with me, Ciaran Fitzgerald. I'm a playwright, screenwriter, and podcaster from South Wales. And seeing as March is Cerebral Palsy Awareness Month, to mark it, I've decided to interview interesting people who have cerebral palsy from Wales and beyond every day in March. If you like this episode, please stay tuned for more throughout the month and like and share. Now enjoy this episode of the Palsy Podcast. Hello and welcome to this episode of the Palsy Podcast, episode 11. Thank you again for joining me. My name is Ciaran Fitzgerald and I'm recording interviews with interesting people who have cerebral palsy every day in March to mark Cerebral Palsy Awareness Month. And today I'm joined by David Smith. Hi David, how's it going?
Yeah, good, mate. Yeah, not too bad, thank you.
Thanks for doing this. David is Paralympic Boccia champion, so we're going to talk about his career in Boccia and Paralympics. But first of all, I'm going to open with the question I kind of ask everyone who comes on this program is what was it like growing up with CP? And was there a moment where you first felt different from your peers, maybe?
Yeah, I think for me, I guess I kind of knew at a young age that I had cerebral palsy. I mean, and I couldn't walk. It was kind of obvious because I was always on the floor. But so that kind of, but I guess no one really made a big deal of it in my family. It was just kind of, it was what it was, as it were. Obviously when I was younger, social life as a kid was a little bit awkward sometimes because I couldn't do the things that my peers couldn't maybe do. So, playing outside in the garden with neighbours and all that sort of stuff, it would be I'd have to sort of find ways of doing it that were, often slightly different to the norm, which was, yeah, I don't know. I just got on with it. I don't remember being frustrated by it. I just remember just having
I,
to. It
I
was
was
all my.
gonna, I was gonna ask you whether you ever found it frustrating or did you just kind of get on with it?
Yeah, I think I was just kind of get on with it. I think my family were always a kind of keep calm and carry on sort of types,
Mm,
and I just kind of fitted into that quite nicely. So, I didn't really want to make a big deal out of it. In fact, actually, it was more annoying when people did make a big deal out of it
mm,
because I didn't personally care that much. I mean, I did. Obviously, give me a choice between walking and not, I probably would have taken walking, but
mm.
but I couldn't, so it was never an option. So it kind of just I didn't think about it. I was too busy trying to work out how to solve the problem, which kind of piqued my interest more.
I like if it's your lived experience, it's normal for you. You don't see it as a big
Yeah.
thing. You like you say, you just get on with it and like do what you have to do. And like, what was school like? What was your experience at school like?
So my earliest experience of school was probably I went up to Winchester, a place called Meecroft, which was almost like a precursor to the modern sort of assessment centres. And up there, it was sort of where my parents found out, that I had cerebral palsy and
Okay,
it's sort of my additional needs, and what they would be. And then earliest memories of sort of going to a special school in Southampton called Cedar School, which was kind of infant and primary school. So when I was sort of 3 to 5 and then 5 to 8, I was going there, and sort of getting my first taste of being in an electric wheelchair when I was about 3, although it was on loan to me. So it was kind of didn't really fit me, and it was like only for a couple of hours a day. So the rest of the time I was in a manual, which I hated. So having spent all of
did
my
did it
sort of
did it take much time to learn how to drive a electric wheelchair?
no, it took me less than 30 seconds. I understood how to drive the chair better than the engineers did, trying to tell me how to drive the chair.
Wow.
Um, um, it was just natural. It just came really naturally to me, and it was easy. But the issue I spent all of my sort of childhood on the floor, so crawling around. I was a really good crawler. I was, climbing stairs, climbing into bed, all that sort of stuff. And then obviously surgeons came along and started operating on me because they wanted to fix me, and I then started not being able to do the things I could do as a child. So that became quite annoying. So I lost faith in surgery quite quickly. um, um,
Do you think there's too much of an attitude of we want this child to be normal, we want to fix them, we want to impose our non-disabled view of what normalcy is? Whereas
Yeah,
not
I
as fair.
definitely think so in the medical world. Absolutely, I think,
Yeah,
particularly in the '90s, it was very
right.
fashionable. So, yeah, it was fashionable and annoying. It was nothing about like make me the best version of myself. It was about right, let's get this guy walking,
Yeah.
even though it was physically impossible. And I knew that. I accepted that from the age of 2 or 3, and the surgeons took 18 years to figure it out. Like it's just like these guys have got PhDs and they can't figure that basic thing out. Um,
Correct me if I'm
yeah.
wrong, but it should be their job to give the person, the best functionality for them, whatever that looks like for the individual person. And that might be walking, and that might be being able to use a chair independently. And it
Yeah,
varies
it's
for
because
every
they read
person.
from a textbook though. They can't see outside the box. They've got no imagination. They're a bit like they're all like little Sheldons, basically all running around the NHS. We're going to operate on him. Um, like, but yeah, I did have one good surgeon. To be fair, when I was 6 or 7, so he took one look at my AFOs and that I had on my feet and went and ripped them off and put them straight in the bin. Going, well, you're never going to need them because you ain't going to walk. I was like, yes, I love this guy. Right. Finally, a straight talking surgeon that doesn't want to read from a textbook. But yeah, so they're few and far between though.
What did you enjoy at school? What were you good at?
Um, what was I good at? I was quite good at a lot of things, to be fair, at school. I was, sorry, not blowing my own trumpet, but I was quite,
It's
yeah,
cool.
I was very. So the problem with my early years at school was I was at a school which was kind of a jack of all trades and a master of none. So they had a massive depth of physical disabilities at my school,
Right.
and a lot of the children had intellectual impairments at the same time.
Mm.
And I was probably so the easiest example is when I was doing maths. I was doing maths in the same class as 11-year-olds, and I was 5. Um,
Okay.
and the
Right.
teachers in the class couldn't really keep me learning because they were trying to educate everybody else around me.
Mm.
So when it came for time for doing my SATs, again, one of the Mrs. Marnie, her name was, she would actually take me into her office at break time and actually teach me as much as she could in that half an hour, um, to give me a chance at doing my SATs properly. My SATs test results didn't come back great in terms of the national average. They were
Mm.
all right, but not great. And then that was kind of the wake up call really for my parents to go, actually, this school's not really going to cut it for him. It's ridiculous. I'm
And
more than capable of doing an education because they knew what I was doing. I mean, I was actually spending most of my time in school, in primary school, teaching the other kids. So I was actually my best mate Jack, who had a speech impediment. I was the only one that could understand him. And we were kind of thick as thieves. And basically, have a history lesson, and he wasn't great at history, but he knew I was, so he would put his hand up. The teacher would look at him. He would say some sort of gobbledygook, and then he would expect me to just regurgitate the correct answer, and the teacher bought it. So
I mean, but like, did you ever feel frustrated? Did you ever think, "Oh, I wish I could have been in a mainstream school"? Do you have any regrets about your education? Um,
not really, because I think my education was sold when I went to secondary school, um, so to speak. I think primary school just kind of put in front of me, showed me the issues that was being faced.
yeah,
Um, I think if I'd have gone to mainstream school, I think because kids can be awful as well. I think I
yeah.
would have been isolated and left out if I'd have been in mainstream school. Um,
Did you experience any bullying in school? Oh,
no, I wasn't a bully, but um, I was always in the class that was top, shall we say? So
Okay.
I was the one dishing it out, or would have been if I'd have been that way inclined.
And then you went on to go to uni. So you went to Swansea Uni and did aerospace engineering, which
I
I
did, yeah.
really. Where did your passion for that come from? Where did you get interested in that?
So I was probably when I was um, living in Eastleigh with my parents for the first maybe 5, 6 years of my life. We actually shared a house with my grandparents, so we had a big semi-detached house in the sort of the nice part of Eastleigh. There is a nice part of Eastleigh, just um, a very small part. But yeah, but so we were, and we had a nice. We lived with my parents, and my grandparents were very keen. Or my granddad was a aerospace engineer, so he'd fought in the Second World War. He'd sort of designed air filters for planes, and he just got me into aircraft. So and I was always his favorite when we were growing up. So we had a great relationship. And a lot of the things that he was passionate about, I
Mm,
subsequently become passionate about. Um, so that kind of was cool. And we had a strong bond, and basically, my obsession became aircraft World War II. I've got an encyclopedic knowledge of anything from 1939 to 1945. Um,
wow.
so, so yeah, and probably a little bit before and after as well. So yeah,
And what was your time at uni like? Did you enjoy your time at uni in Swansea? Yeah.
yeah, uni was great. Again, I spent most of my time at college building up my UCAS points, getting the A levels in the physics and maths because they were the two subjects that I enjoyed the most at
Mm,
school. So I was doing physics and maths, and then it kind of just made I didn't want to do physics because it was quite tough, and I didn't want to do maths because it was quite boring. But so I was like, there's got to be something I can merge these two subjects together and you have the perfect subject. And then someone said to me, "Why don't you just do engineering? That's kind of the amalgamation of the two." And I was like, "Oh,
mm.
that's a good shout." And then I did a little bit of research, and aerospace became the thing that I chose because it kind of linked back to my grandfather. Um, and yeah, I didn't know that at the time, but subsequently realized that that was what he'd done anyway. So yeah, it was kind of a nice roundabout circle. And Swansea was just one of those places where I went in and I just felt quite normal going into there. They
Mm.
didn't treat me any differently. I had a 2.5 hour conversation with the lecturers about aircraft and the wind tunnel and all that sort of stuff, which was a proper nerd fest, but great. Yeah, and all the questions I had around like access and how can I do this and how can I do that, that their attitude was kind of like, well, for the flying that we would do, I'd need help getting on the plane, and they're like, well, your course is made up of about 60% rugby players, so between us, we'll be able to get you on. I was like,
And
wicked,
were
great.
you able to do any of the flying yourself, or yeah? So
Yeah,
how
so I
did
did all.
that work?
Yeah, I took part in all the flying exercises. So as engineers, we weren't designed. We weren't supposed to fly the planes. We were
Okay.
up there to experience and then to make notes. Um, so the first flight I did was around the Gower in a two-seat Cessna. And again, that was experiencing kind of the G forces at sort of different altitudes and
Mm,
kind of experiencing a 2G turn, sustained, all that sort of stuff. And then we went to Cranfield in a flying laboratory. We're basically like an airline, but it was a prop plane. And in the backs of the seats, rather than, on a long haul flight, you get a video, films and you can watch.
yeah.
We had dials and gauges, so we had airspeed, altitude, thermal temperature, pressure, um, over different points of the aircraft, and we had to take notes while the plane was doing what it was doing. It wasn't easy. A couple of times it was like doing a 2 or 3G turn, and the pen felt like lead, and you're trying to write stuff down, and this. Will you keep it still for a minute? Like, um, I've got notes to take here. So yeah, but that was all
And
good.
you mentioned that you're passionate about kind of World War II era aircraft and stuff. Did
Yeah.
you ever have the opportunity to fly in any of those sort of
No, I've
still?
never been up in anything with the decent engine. No. So unfortunately not. One day maybe if save up enough, but it's quite expensive. But I've
Yeah.
been to lots of air shows and I've seen them. I think the only plane I haven't seen is a Mosquito at the moment, so that's kind of on my bucket list when it eventually we
Mm.
get a brand new one in the UK. The Americans have got one and so have the New Zealanders, which make no sense to me because we designed the bloody thing. But hopefully one day we will have one back in the UK and we can celebrate that moment.
That'd be great. So, how did you first get into boccia then? Where did you discover it?
So I did that at Cedar School, but much again, it was probably at the time it was a bit rubbish because I used to throw sideways and couldn't hit a barn door, and the people that were telling me how to play the game didn't understand the game either.
Right.
So we would just go to Stoke Mandeville once a year, and yeah, for the National Junior Mini Games, and we would do different events that Stoke Mandeville would put on, and we didn't have any real preparation for it, probably a week, and then we'd go up and play the sports that we'd just been doing for a week. And I was always told that I was too disabled to take part in serious sport. But Stoke Mandeville was just like a taster session with no real purpose to it, um, which was great. But yeah, but it kind of then planted the seed because when I went to Trelaws on a Monday night, Boccia was on as a club
Right.
session. Um, and basically at Trelaws, the only way to get out of doing homework was to do a sport.
Okay.
Um, and because Botch was on a Monday night, because otherwise I'd had prep Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, because we was
Yeah.
in the top set in at Trelaws.
Yeah, yeah.
And they bloody worked hard. I mean, it was so they used to have this merit system where you would gain merits for doing good things, and because
Right.
we were the top set and we were expected to do good things all the time, we got no bloody points. So literally,
No,
literally like
it was just seeing you in the top set, so
yeah, it was
you
just normal.
doing
Yeah.
good
We
should
weren't. It
be
wasn't because we weren't doing anything of merit because we were expected to do it all the time anyway. We got no bloody merit. So the teachers, it was terrible. We'd have some of the lower classes would have like 150 merit points, and all of us on average, collectively, all of us together would have less
Mm.
than the one person that had got the top points in the next class down. With literally together. I think one year we actually only probably put 10 points together between all of us.
That sounds like a rigged system, to be honest.
Yeah, it was definitely rigged, but they were like, "Yeah, get on with it. Yeah, what are you gonna do?" Yeah, yeah. So,
So, how would you maybe explain bocce to someone who hasn't come across it before?
um, so boccia is a bit like boule or pétanque indoors. It's quite soft leather balls on a hard floor. What's good about it is the balls are quite grippy, so it's easy to hold and throw, and there's no rules on how you throw the ball. You can throw anywhere you like. And yeah, and it can be, and it's quite. I would say, like as a spectator, it's not necessarily a great spectator sport, but when you get playing it and you start playing properly, it becomes a bit like Tetris. You can't put it down.
Is
And
it
and then
quite tactical?
yeah, it's very tactical and very competitive. Yeah, and there's when I was at Trelaws, we would train once a week, and then uh, we'd have a regional championships in February, March time, and then we'd have a national championships in April, May,
Mm.
in Sheffield. And we'd rock up in this massive coach, and we'd be expected to basically clean up all the medals. Um, we'd be looking down on all the other little minibuses that were there and go, "Oh, aren't they cute?"
Mm.
And then go in, pick up the medals, come home again.
And,
If
and
and if you
when
didn't
did
win, you felt a bit left out.
when did you kind of know? Oh, I'm good at this. I can be Paralympic standard. It's-
So, well, so basically, I'd had I had one regional championships in my first season when I was in year seven at Trelaws, and I got through to the knockouts, I think. But I didn't qualify for the nationals, but I'd done all right. Then year later, I had another regional event, and I bloody awful. So yeah, nothing happened. And then the year after that, I actually changed my chair. I got a new seating system fitted to
right.
my chair because before that I was very lopsided and wonky, and the physios at Trelaws were very, very good and quite good at sort of physio with consent rather than physio done to you, as I was experiencing at Cedar School.
Oh, yeah.
So 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 it was and it was about making me better at sport, and what do you need to do for this, that, and we need to improve your posture for this, that, and we need all that sort of stuff. So reluctantly I kind of started listening to them, and yeah, over time the changes they were making started making a massive difference to my life, and general health, but equally, sort of boccia, I literally went from being pretty shite to pretty great, in probably a year,
Oh,
because of the changes they'd put in. They were simple changes, but they were really effective apparently. So I won the regional championships, and then went to the nationals, in Sheffield. I got out of the pool quite comfortably. I lost in the semi-final, but because it was top three go through uh, to the British, I never lose a third and fourth playoff. So,
yeah.
basically, I won that, and got me through to the British. And then, at the British, Barry, who was the boccia lead at Trelaws, basically he was the one that ran all the sessions. He basically just got a minibus from the back of the, governor's, place, got the head nurse who was a mate of his to share the driving, and we just drove up to Scotland together on a weekend,
Amazing.
for the British. Not really expecting anything, but then I ended up beating the UK captain, Peter Pearce at the time.
Wow.
I beat the players. Yeah, I beat all the Scottish players comfortably. And yeah, I just, just cleaned out, basically, and then that was kind of, and then within a couple of weeks I'd been earmarked for the A. I was then advocated for head boy at Trelaws because my mates decided to put my name in the hat when I was away. Bastards. Um, and then they used my result to kind of to do my campaign. And then and then they, because no one else wanted to do it. And then, when I got back, I got an England call up at the same time. So I was in the
Oh, wow.
first England squad, and I started training with, sort of people like, Nigel Murray, MBE, which was pretty cool because he was our best UK player at that point, and he
How
had more
how
experience than
much
anybody else.
how much did you learn from him, and how much did your game improve?
Oh, mate, yeah, no, he taught me pretty much everything, from a sort of one player to another, sort of the international stage, because it's totally different to national level.
Right.
And the sort of things to look out for, the underhand stuff that goes on, the little bit of psychology you need to be aware of, the what not to get involved in and what to get involved in, and when to cheer, when not to cheer, all that sort of stuff. So yeah, he kind of put me under his wing, and we formed quite a good double act in the team event. And then we also had friends at Trelaws who were also going up at the same time. So I had people in college, Trelaw College,
Mm,
getting into England call up. So Dan Bentley was one, and Ali Lalani, who was another good friend of mine. So we would then be training together, because we'd all got England call ups at roughly the same time.
yeah.
So that was quite nice. It was sort of as a trio. We, made
Mm,
training quite competitive and easy, and we could work together and sort of bounce off each other a little bit. And it also made, for Trelaws, it kind of gave us a focal point,
yeah.
and the coaches could just shove us all together basically and just get on with it and get the ball thrown. And I would go from the school to the college quite often to meet up with these guys to play boccia. And also meet up to go on camps, because, by the year 10 I was, and by sort of year 10, year 11 going into college, I was pretty independent, so I was
Yeah.
getting myself organized for going to training camps and stuff like that.
That's brilliant. Like, so, like, when are we talking now? What year? And, like, how did Beijing come about? How did you qualify for Beijing? And what was your experience like at your first Paralympics?
Yeah, so this is the 4 year cycle. So literally, this is probably from 2003 all the way to 2008. I was
Right.
actually probably 2 months away from going to Athens. They were seriously considering taking me, having because I'd just won the British the year before,
Right.
and unfortunately, it was deemed that I was too young. to go.
How old would you been into this for?
So I'd have been 15
Right.
in Athens. So yeah, I was deemed too young, unfortunately. So I didn't go. But I was, I think at that point they decided I was good enough.
Mm.
So who knows? I reckon I would have. Again, youth is great. You just turn up and play. So I reckon I would have given a few people a nasty shock.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I ended up doing that in the year later anyway. So it was fine. Um,
And 2008, like, kind of against international opposition, was that a different challenge for you?
no, well, the problem with 2008 was it almost came too late because I became double world champion the year before
Right,
um, in 2007. So I'd already beaten everyone on the circuit at that point. Um,
right.
um, and unfortunately, in 2008, I believed my own hype, and felt like I kind of got a bit ahead of my station and didn't back up my sort of where I thought I was at with real performance. So in the individuals in 2008, I absolutely made a right dog's dinner of it, to be honest, and didn't get out the pool, and ended up watching the person that I'd beaten in the pool win a silver medal at the. So that was pretty shit.
Did
um,
you feel any sort of redemption than winning the team gold, or were you still thinking about what you did in the individual? Oh,
yeah, you kind of park it. So I mean, in the team, we started bloody awful. I was still struggling with the environment. So in the end, again, it was Nigel that kind of just put his arm around me and went like, just
mm.
do what you do, just do what I say. Stop thinking about it, just play. Just you shoot, I'll point you, you shoot. And so that's kind of how we went, and then we just started a confidence built up over that
Mm.
tournament. We got a few not lucky wins, but we got a few close wins that struggled to get over the line. And then just as we moved through the tournament, the momentum built. We probably peaked in the semi final. We absolutely demolished China, who were a very good team, and we really turned up for that game. And then going into the final against Portugal, which we were always our nemesis, really.
Right.
We again we just played really well, good start, and managed to get a lead on them before they could figure out what they were doing. Um, so yeah, I love the fact that I was in the highlights reel for the final. Literally all my shots got in the final highlights reel, went much to Nigel's annoyance. Like, what the fuck? Even
How much of Boccia is like keeping mentally strong and keeping that good? Because I imagine there's a lot of psychological pressure. Uh,
Yeah, it's full on. Botch is really intense. So again, you can't really miss like, and even unlucky bounces can cost you games. So you've just got to be, and you've got to be reactive quite quickly to scenarios as they change. Someone might get a bit of a fluke or a bit of a lucky bounce, and you've got to react quickly to it, and almost come up with a plan to sort of solve the situation as they materialize. Um, and also sometimes the opposite, the situation just becomes really easy, and you've got to take your chances when you get them, and because you don't know when the next one's coming, so it's kind of, but also you don't want to take too many chances and then give away silly points. So it's kind of a balance
mm.
between risk and reward, and you're constantly like weighing it up, and when to be aggressive, when to be steady. Um,
That's really interesting. And like you've done quite a lot in terms of growing the sport in Swansea and South Wales. So how did you come to set up Swansea Boccia Club in 2010?
so well, basically, Swansea Uni, I was fed up with playing on my own, to be honest.
Right.
And I had friends, and I had friends at uni who I thought were boccia classifiable, or at least they could throw. So it was like, well, why not come along and let's have a play. And I met a few friends um, who wanted to take part, and yeah, we just started building up a club at the local leisure centre, and they already put down the boccia markings for me a year before. So
Mm,
with the markings down, it was like, well, we might as well use them. Um, so we did. Unfortunately, at the university, because Paralympic sports not wasn't that big at the time, like I could never get boccia into like varsity or all of the sort of major sporting events of the uni. and trying to get court time was also a pain in the ass. So I just did it on my own at a private leisure centre just down the road in the city centre, which was fine.
And are you still developing players? Like, what have you achieved in terms of developing the next generation of bocce players in Swansea?
Yeah, so the club's been going for so long now. We've had a couple of Welsh champions through our door. We've had players in and out of the Welsh squad. Um, and yeah, it's been really, really good over the duration. COVID probably knocked us back quite a lot. And we've lost numbers significantly since COVID. We've been struggling the last couple of years around competitions. There just is a lack of competitions at the moment domestically. So it's quite hard to give people the sort of training for the sake of training without any comps, because boccia comes alive when there's a competition. It's not, the training is great, but the competitions are better. That's kind of the thing that's holding us back a little bit at the moment. It's just a lack of competition opportunities around Wales and in the UK in general, really. And then for me as a sort of international player, the standard is so much higher. So it's hard for me to sort of step down, but it's like, it's a chasm. It's not a step. It's the standard that I'm at versus the standard of domestic comp. It's not the same league. It's not a fair competition almost, even though I'm in this. Yeah.
Is the domestic level stronger in other countries compared to
Yeah,
the UK?
considerably stronger. Yeah, Portugal, for example, so their boccia league is based on the football, and their football clubs have a social contract where they have 7 charitable events that they have to sort of support. Boccia is usually one of the 7 that they always pick. So clubs like Porto, Benfica, they've all got a boccia club associated to them, and their players do the regional championships, the national championships. They compete in team and individual, and it's a really good system.
Do you think that model could work, like in, like, say, Swansea City or Cardiff
Yeah,
adopted
absolutely.
the boccia team?
I think there's a lot of models that could work. To be fair, any model's better than no model. So I think in Korea as well, they've got a massive number of players because they're all in one demographic really in Korea, because it's kind of 2 cities and a lot of space in between. So they've actually got a huge number of players that compete at the nationals or regionals, and they have a domestic ranking system where even if you're a Paralympic champion, if you don't do the domestic system, you don't qualify for the next year's Paralympic squad. So the Korean system's mad, cutthroat, but brilliant.
Does sound brutal.
Yeah, absolutely brutal, but great, because like that's how you harden people up to the pressure of the sport. Like it's tough all the way from the bottom to the top, not just at the Paralympic level. So and all the players they bring in are always well trained, well coached, know what they're doing. If you see a Korean player, even if they're unranked, you're kind of hoping they're not in your pool, because you just know they're going to be good. Like there's going to be something about them that like, I'm going to have to play that guy, and just try and get it over the line.
Good in kind of what way? Do you mean tactically, or they use different tactics?
Tactically strong, know what they're doing, got a strong identity about them. They kind of play to their strengths. They're not really worried about who they're playing against. They don't change anything for their opponent. And they also have a good court coverage, so they kind of know, they're not taken by surprise very easily. It's just, they've just got a good, solid boccia foundation in terms of basic skills, which a lot of the players coming up who are young and kind of into the sport don't always have, particularly in my category. They don't always have those fundamentals nailed, but if you're from Korea, you probably do. So they're always, even if they're unranked, they're probably top 10 players in the world when they come in. And so you're in a pool, and your first pool game is usually should be the easiest game of the tournament. But if you've got a Korean and he's unranked, it's probably not going to be the easiest game of that tournament. It's probably going to be one of the toughest.
That's really interesting.
So you got to peak gotta gotta go in
Gotta,
kind of.
you can't ease your way into a tournament. You've got to
No,
be
you
on
gotta
top.
yeah, you gotta start quick and hope that you've got enough. So yeah,
And London 2012, then, that was a home games, and
yeah.
you were kind of a bit of a poster boy for those home games. How did that feel, and what were those 2 weeks like for you?
Yeah, London was amazing. I think obviously learnt my lesson from Beijing in terms of what I needed, my setup, and found a couple of years earlier Sarah, who'd been working with me while I was at Trelaws, but also sort of afterwards, who I didn't take to Beijing. I brought her in under my sort of in my circle, closed circle, and kind of worked as a. She became my coach, but then became my sort of on court assistant permanently, and just having that continuity of someone on court with you all the time who's
Mm,
that one person um just made a massive difference. And she spent a lot of time with our psych around like trying to understand how I tick, how to get the best out of me, what to say on court, what to look out for when I'm struggling, all that sort of stuff, and just built a really strong relationship with me. And that kind of, me and her were always kind of strong in competition. You know,
yeah.
when everybody else was falling apart, me and her would be the ones holding it together. Um, so because obviously
And,
the
and I
pressure.
bet that relationship is really important because if you can't work well together, you're both gonna not perform to your best of your level.
Yeah, and the pressure of Paralympic Games is just different to any other competition you'd be at. So the players that we'd have in the squad, you know, obviously as the years progressed with the squads were going to bigger. So in Beijing we took it to our team, and that was about it. But for London we had the whole shebang. So we had the BC
Wow.
threes, the fours, the so our squad in London, because we were a home nation, we had a full squad. So there was a lot of
Right.
players, a lot of staff, a big group. And again, with all
Mm.
of that, and most of them were inexperienced in terms of Paralympic Games. So you've got noise, and you've got people trying to find their way, and pressure, and people falling out with each other, and all that shit. So again, it was
Did,
just
did you have to take on almost like a captaincy or mentorship role for the younger players who hadn't experienced it before? Oh,
sort of, but not really, I guess, because I was still relatively young myself, even though it was my second games. Because
yeah.
I was only 23 going into London, so I was very much looking after myself and myself. Me and myself and I.
Bet.
Yeah. So it was very much me in London, and obviously with the team as well. But yeah, I mean, there was players around us that we would kind of keep an eye on, but we had a good relationship with most. I had a good relationship with most of the players, to be fair, in the GB squad.
Mm,
I mean, I think we all had a pretty good time. Obviously, the results just didn't quite go as well as we'd have liked in terms of some of the other categories, and obviously the team was falling down the rankings at that point. So we did well to get a bronze medal, but it was yeah, it was sort of the
were
team was on the
you
way down as I was on the way up, trying to get my silver.
were you disappointed with that for the home games and like how did that inspire you like going into Rio?
Yeah, I think I would have liked a few more. I mean, I would have liked Stephen. He came fourth, and again, we always thought that because he was world champion in 2010 with the
Right.
pairs, and we thought that the fours might have done a bit better.
Mm,
I think it does put when you're in the Paralympic Games, you do kind of it's the collective. You kind of want to, because obviously Paralympics, you're picking up medals left, right, and center, and the
right.
medal board is constantly going up. And you, as a sport, you don't want to be the one left out because that's going to have an impact on funding for the next 4 years. And yeah, it's just so. So again, we felt like we had a chance to maybe picked up a few more medals in London.
Mm.
And we got two, but both of them were kind of me and the team. So so it would have been nice for somebody else. And I think Nigel was looking to maybe medal again, but unfortunately the powers in the BC twos was shifting to a very more Asian dominance.
Right.
And so he was starting to find it difficult to medal because he's just running out of power essentially, and couldn't move stuff as well as they could. So they was just starting to bash him around, and the game has started to change. The tactics were changing. So before London into London, it was very much sort of build it up, keep it tight, don't give
Mm,
anything easy away, nudge nudge. Use a few more balls, but you keeping the score close, and then wait for your chance, wait for mistakes, and then pounce. But sort of London onwards, it became creating your own opportunities, and not letting things settle. So again, the Asian
Mm.
countries started playing really aggressive boccia, high
Hi.
risk stuff that we weren't necessarily used to playing. So people had to adjust. And yeah, I was sort of Sarah was the one that was sort of telling me like you need to join this or you're gonna get left behind.
Be more
Um,
aggressive, be
yeah,
more.
be more aggressive, be on the front foot. Take control. You're not going to beat them being passive. So yeah, and that took me a while to. I was reluctant for a long time, and she always said, you always need a bloody reason. Like you never just go, yep, trust me. And I'm like, yeah, well, demonstrate it. Show. If I see the value in something, I will then go all in and I
Yeah.
will put all my effort into it. But you need to prove it to me first, otherwise I'm going to think I'm not going to buy it.
Fair.
Bit like with the surgeons, I don't just take their
No,
word for it. They need to prove it first before they can sell it to me.
and I
Um,
respect that. You need
yeah,
to believe it yourself before you completely buy
yeah.
into it. But like Tokyo must have been weird because it was 2020 during COVID. Like, what was that experience like compared to Rio and London?
Yeah, so I mean, they're all quite different. So every Paralympic Games has its own unique flavor to it. I would say so. Tokyo was, I mean, no different in that regard. It was just a bit different to the others because it was a different games. I think that obviously lateral flow testing and all that sort of stuff were quite
Mm,
interesting, and the no crowd, but I actually loved it. I think it came at the right time for me because I think if it had happened a year earlier, I don't think I would have done as well as I would have, because I was sort of running out at the end, coming towards the end of my tether with the sport.
right.
I'd been a full time athlete since 2014, so 6 years as a full time athlete without doing anything else but boccia. My brain was fried. Um, I was winning but not getting any recognition for it. So I
Right.
was undefeated. I was triple crown, blah 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 blah. And I was just kind of getting done with it. I was kind of like, what's the point? I've done everything there is to do. I've won everything there is to win. Like, what's the point of this? So it kind of got into Tokyo feeling a bit like, well, I would have been meh.
Yeah.
But thankfully COVID hit sort of March time and I was able to take a proper reset. So I had a good 3 months of not playing any balls at all, which was amazing. And because unlike some people that just can't stop thinking about bocce, they eat, sleep, dream
Mm,
bocce. I have no problem putting the balls down.
right.
Like, like, it's not. We have a, you know, on court, great, but as soon as I'm off court, it's like right, I want to do something else.
I
And
think
just
that's important though, the ability
yeah,
to switch off and have other interests, and that must be beneficial for your mental health to have a clear head about other things that you're doing in life as well as
yeah, I think so.
watching.
I think being more than just a bocce player has always been part of my makeup. And yeah, I think that's probably, and also, I got into the sport not really liking it. I just got into it because I started winning the damn thing and, it got me out doing homework.
Yeah,
And then I started liking it because I was winning. And obviously the challenges of losing and having to find solutions to problems that came up. But it wasn't the initial traction of the sport that got me into it. You know, it was the things that followed from the
yeah.
development of it. So yeah, and then obviously having a year off, more or less, doing all my conditioning at home, sort of reinvented the wheel for me in terms of my nutrition. I started working as a Herbalife distributor and coach, so did quite a lot of work around looking at nutrition, gut health, sleep, my own, and realized that I wasn't really looking after myself as well as I could have been. And being cheese toasty for lunch and skipping breakfast and all that sort of stuff, is great when you're in your 20s, but when you hit 30, my body had suddenly started slowing
Mm.
down a bit, and it transpired in mental fatigue more than anything else. But um, so yeah,
How would you advise then maybe for people with CP or anyone generally to better kind of preserve and protect their mental health and their physical health, I suppose.
I think that people are quite bad at planning. I'm terrible at it, but I think just people without thinking about it are just quite bad at sort of planning for these things. Like even just taking a minute to sort of, I think without having someone there to go to sort of prompt with questions that kind of lead to the answers almost like
Yeah.
we don't. So naturally we just crack on with our day, and we don't think about the consequences of these sort of daily habits on a yearly or decade basis. You just it becomes normal, whether it's skipping breakfast, whether it's grabbing a quick coffee before you go into
Yeah.
work, whether it's having a fully loaded breakfast, or knocking back 15 pints at a weekend, or whatever your sort of modus operandi is. You don't no one sort of stops and goes, actually, how is this having an impact on my health to do the things that I want to do, or to achieve the goals that I want to achieve in the next 2, 3, 4, 5 years. And yeah, so I think part of what I like about my job, sort of as the coach, is to be able to get people to just stop and have a conversation with me for 20 minutes and just go, right,
Think
what
about
do you
what
want to
they're
do in the
doing.
next 2, 3, 4, 5 years, and how can I help you from a nutritional point of view?
Yeah.
Uh, make those things more achievable. Not saying
Yeah.
that it'll definitely work, but it's. I mean, the one thing you can guarantee is doing the same thing over and over again. You're going to get the same results,
No.
and
No. I'm.
unless you're insane, of course, and then you might get a different result. But
Who knows? Um. Yeah. You've also been an advocate for independent living for disabled people,
yeah,
which is difficult for disabled people to make that step in independent living, and I'm kind of in the boat now where I want to do that, but
yeah,
it's a big, scary step, and I don't necessarily know what support system is going
yeah.
to be in place when I do it. So, what advice would you give, and what maybe more needs to be done to ensure that disabled people can live independently?
Yeah, see, I was lucky because I was born at the right time, the right era, and sort of I moved areas when things went south. So the history, obviously, the independent. So I was always on sort of PIP and all that stuff,
Yeah,
but the sort of care side of it, the most important thing for me was the independent living fund, and having direct payments. And when I went to deciding to go to university a long way away from home was the first step in forcing the council to provide me with a decent care package, from Hampshire. So that was tick box one. Then the Tory Lib Dem government came in and pretty much put a bomb into the benefit system, for disabled people. So basically removed all those sort of nice safety nets overnight that made independent living more or less impossible. But luckily, I was in Wales at that point. So because I was in Wales, and it was a Labour government,
yeah,
there was a basically they sort of took took responsibility for a lot of the independent living fund. So deciding to stay in Wales, I kind of moved councils and became under the Swansea remit, which meant that I had a decent care package, which meant I could afford, my living carers. But also, being at Trelawn's at the right time and having an extra year at Trelaw College meant that I could spend a lot of time researching all this stuff, um,
right.
and speaking to ex students, and friends who had moved about how they were going about it, and just kind of piece by piece sort of put it all together. So in between my trips to the local pub with my mates, because I was doing ASPE and AS Further Maths, because I'd already got the UCAS points I needed. So I was
Okay.
basically at Trelawn's on a year's bender, with my friends.
That
Um,
sounds all right.
yeah, uh, in preparation for Beijing. But the education authority kind of were, basically they were paying for my Trelaw fees, and I just
Right.
basically I just lied to them, and I said, look, I'm staying at Trelawn's because I need to get more UCAS points because the Swansea needs X, Y, and Z, and I haven't quite got that yet,
Right.
which was bullshit because Swansea had basically said I was fine.
Mm,
But I wanted to stay at Trelawn's because I needed a solid base for to the Beijing Paralympics.
yeah,
And I didn't want to be at university before I went to my first Paralympic Games.
that would
So
be big
yeah,
upheaval.
yeah, a
Big
bit of
up.
a so that was kind of the plan. And so I used that year as a gap year basically. That was kind of that was which was great. But it meant I could get all my ducks in a row. But again, you've just got to play the system. Well, that's my advice to anyone that's coming in: is you've just got to play the system. You can't follow the rules. You have to follow your own rules and your own. You've got to be selfish about it and actually go. This is what I need. What do I have to do to break the rules to get what I want?
Yeah. Thank you.
Um,
That means a lot to me because I sometimes feel like, oh, am I asking for too much? Is this going to be possible? But maybe I need to get the confidence. Say no. If this is going to work, this is what I need in order to move out.
yeah, you've just got to be better at saying no to people and also sort of shoving rods up people's asses when they're not giving
Yeah.
you what you need. But also in a way, and also getting people on side, knowing who to be friendly with, who not to, who to
Yeah.
pull in. It's manipulating the system basically. It's
Okay.
just it's unbridled manipulation, and I'm very good at it. I'm very good
I'm
at
going to use that as a quote for when this
yeah,
episode goes up.
yeah. Independent
Uh,
living is just about manipulating society to get what you need.
yeah.
Like
I like that. I like that as a
yeah.
quote.
So
The
yeah,
the
and
last part. Go on, sorry.
yeah, I know, and so obviously university came and went, and then sort of
Mm,
decided that I would live in Swansea permanently. And the main reason why chose to live in Swansea was care package, because I knew if I went back to Hampshire,
mm.
that I would lose a lot of that. So again, while the sun is shining, make hay. So
Absolutely.
so
Yes.
again, it's just decisions you have to make. It as a disabled person don't always match what the reality of what most people probably have to face in terms of, but we all have decisions to make. Like every adult has to make choices between this and that, and you do it
Yes.
with for the best will of the world. It's just, our factors are a little bit more around, social care and
Mm.
independence, more heavily weighted, shall we say.
Yes, absolutely. And the last question I'm going to ask you before we finish is, what's one thing that you wish people knew about cerebral palsy?
um, Yeah, I don't know. I'm kind of the attitude. I wish I knew nothing about it because I don't think it's that important. And
Right.
I wish they'd spend more time just getting to know the people behind the disability. Because again, I don't think it's a majorly big deal. I think we've got a very boring disability. I've seen a lot. I've seen people with Duchenne muscular dystrophy who have life limiting conditions, and how they have to deal with things. I think we're blessed, to be honest. So for me personally, I love that quote that Morgan Freeman says about Black History Month, where he goes, "You want to put all my history into a month?
Um,
Why
yeah,
don't you have a White History Month?" And I'm kind of the same with cerebral palsy. It's like it's such a broad church across.
absolutely.
It covers all manners of sins. No one with CP is exactly the same. It also now probably dystonia is now becoming a thing inside, as diagnosis improves and stuff. And it's almost it's almost too broad a church, to be honest. It's almost like too broad a thing to put a month on it. I would just
Thank you for destroying the concept of this podcast in like a
yeah,
couple of
yeah.
sentences, David. That was
Sorry,
great.
yeah. But that's my opinion of it. I really couldn't give two shits.
But
About
I
what
like that
people.
attitude and I respect
Yeah,
that. But everyone's affected differently. Everyone. But I
yeah,
guess also you'd say what helped me, I guess, is learning from other people's experiences and taking little bits and you
yeah,
know that shared experience is important. I understand what you're saying.
yeah.
Um, but thank you so much for doing this. It's been lovely to talk to you, Ciaran, about your career, and yeah, thank you for your time this morning.
No worries, Kieran. Yeah, thanks very much. Yeah. And
And
if
that's
any of you guys want to follow me online, please do. Instagram and all that stuff. Please and also get in touch if anybody wants any support or help around independent living or anything like that. I'm happy to try and give a little bit of wisdom. I'm not very wise, but I'll do my best.
is it okay if I share some links to your social media in the description of this?
Yeah, please do. Yeah, absolutely.
Cool. Absolutely, I'll do that. Thank you to David for coming on, and thank you for listening to this episode of the Palsy Podcast. Please like, subscribe, and stay tuned throughout the month for more interesting guests who have CP. We're going to be releasing one of these every day on YouTube, on Apple Podcasts, or on Spotify, whatever's easiest for you. So please listen and maybe leave a comment if you've got any questions and let me know what you think. But for now, it's goodbye from me, goodbye from David, goodbye.
Cheers, guys.
Thank you for listening to this episode of the Palsy Podcast with me, Ciaran Fitzgerald. I want to thank my guests for joining me, and I hope that you'll stay tuned for the next episode and more throughout March. Thank you.